Nice to meet you all. Appreciate you joining today. I'm Dan. I'm the Integration Support Manager at Avenu. We are a banking as a service platform. What sets us apart from other banking as a service platforms is we are also the bank. So when you have like a client like a Stripe or a Plaid or something like that, they are basically the middleman between a fintech and a bank with quasi-uninsured accounts and so on and so forth. Our platform is different in the sense that we are the bank, so we know exactly who our customers are, which gives us a lot of benefit when it comes to like federal and state regulations and compliance and security and all that sort of stuff. So essentially what we're doing here at Avenu is building like I said, a banking as a service platform that facilitates everything that a bank account can do. So if you are a fintech, if you are like a money transmitter, if you are tracking the price of sneakers and setting up a platform to buy, sell, and trade sneakers on an application or something, and you need a way to process money, perhaps you want to do some cool things with like sports betting off of like generated interest rates from deposits or something. We've seen it all. We can support just about all of it. A caveat, since we are a bank, everything is pretty well locked down. So some of the things I'm going to be showing today isn't specifically how we use it on a day-to-day basis, just because of security, compliance, all that sort of stuff. For record, I had to get an approval to use this webcam instead of my laptop webcam. That's how locked down we are. So hopefully we can show you some cool stuff. What my team does as part of the banking as a service platform, known as Avenu, we facilitate the integration of the API. Essentially, the banking as a service platform is an API. That's why we use Postman. It's one of the multitudes of reasons that we use Postman, not the least of which is we also get to work with Elizabeth Pickle on a regular basis. Shouts out to her. We use partner workspaces for that. So our clients, since everything is so locked down, we have to have a pretty tight control over who can access the APIs, both sandbox and production and everything else. We have tons of security controls, authentications, all that sort of stuff. It is easier for us, since we also don't have an application. We are still very much in an MVP status. It's easier for us to use Postman collections. And we use those Postman collections in partner workspaces. So we set up a partner workspace for each one of our clients. We give them a big collection. It has everything involved in it. I'll show that in just a second. We also use it for a quasi-UAT, because as you know, if you've worked in a startup before, everybody does everything, and you are slim on resources more often than not. So myself and Mike, who's one of the moderators here, who probably knows more about this than I do, so if you have questions, trust his answer over mine. We set up a bunch of UAT tests just for like essentially smoke testing the API. So if a new release comes out, we can run an automated suite of tests. And then past that, we had to solve the problem of how do we version control the collections for our clients. So a new release comes out. If you've worked with clients in the past, I've worked on both sides. I've been both a developer and client relations. We publish a new version of the API. How do you integrate all that stuff into it? We make some sort of a change. We have some new thing coming out. Typically, you'll get like an API documentation email or something, but that's not always enough to really get your eyes on it. So we have version control set up within the Postman collection workspaces themselves. And I guess apart from talking about it anymore, let me bring my Postman up here and move you all down to another screen here, and we'll get started. All right. Where is my share functionality? Hang on. Uh-oh. We ran into a problem. I don't see a way for me to share my screen. Now that I'm on stage. Anyone? No. Oh, sorry. That's on me. I got it. So the backstage chat's going crazy. That's my own screw up. Let me bring up my Postman thing here. Okay. Better. Let me rearrange. I lit some incense to the demo gods. So hopefully they are shining their light on us. All right, so Workspaces. I've created a workspace that's kind of similar to what we use for our clients. So we have a single source of truth, basically, for our partner collections. We're going to call it the gold standard collection because at some point in this presentation development, I was going to color everything as Dungeons and Dragons themed. I might still torture you with that as we go along. So this is an example of our collections. Banking kind of works across multiple days. You have like an ACH, a funding or something, it takes a day to settle. We've organized it in such a way that it's logical for time, if that makes sense. It's linear, I guess I should say. So we have like a part one here. This would be things like, customer onboarding, adding a debit card to an account, funding, all that sort of stuff. We are currently in the process of reworking this once we get access to like flows and approvals and everything to turn this into a big flow thing. So maybe I can come back and showcase that when it's finished. But in the meantime, here is our collection. This has pretty much everything that we can do all the way through. So when we got this, when I first started at Avenu, I was one of the first 10 people to be hired. This collection was not organized like this. It was just a big mess, and there were no tests. So we had no idea if something was working or not. The first thing that I started doing, and then really Mike did when he joined, was create a bunch of what are now called post-response scripts, which is essentially tests. So part of that is, essentially checking the status code is 200, a token is returned for getting a token. If we create a customer, we have a ton of post requests, like responses to test more or less every single line. I'm a stickler for this sort of thing, especially with an API endpoint that's been getting touched a lot because we're building it. I want to know that every single field is coming back as we expect it to. So it's all well and good that you have these things and you can, test it individually. What you can also do is test it as a run. So we can come into the actual gold standard collection here, hit the run button, and if my instance has worked, it should be able to run all of these tests. So you can see it's going to run all of these different calls. It's not going to run every single one of them. It'll break, et cetera, et cetera. That's all expected. But just to give you an example, if you hit the run gold standard collection, you'll see it starts running through here and pulling calls. As you can see, we already got some errors. So our UAT process, prior to doing this, would take a long time. As you can imagine, we would have to run through every single one of these calls, validate it, on and on and on. Using Postman, we can now put together a bunch of post request scripts to test all of these things, run at once. So we can do this on a release day, run it, go get some coffee, do whatever else, come back and read through the logs. Like I said, a lot of these are going to be erroring out just because of the nature of our organization. One thing that you can do while you're writing these that you can do, I can't do yet, is if you come into the post request scripts or the post response scripts, you can use code snippets. So if you want to set a collection variable, set an environment variable, it kind of just does it for you. With Postbot, which soon we will have access to, you can actually ask Postbot just like, hey, I need a test that will capture the response, make sure that it has this variable, make sure that it's this type of variable, whatever you need, it'll pretty consistently give you exactly what you're looking for. So even the time save of generating all these tests, or the time save of the UAT tests, the time save of generating all those tests is like astronomical just with the built-in tools that Postman has. So we love that. All right. Now, talk a little bit about partner workspaces. So this is how we interact with our clients here. We set up a partner workspace. I had to pre-create this because it goes to an admin for approval. Couldn't do it live on the call, but essentially you create a partner workspace and then you can set a bunch of settings in here. So I've got the settings open. Only invited partners and team members. As a compliant, secure organization, it's very important that we have user controls. We can configure what the sidebar shows if we want to show them certain things. You can change a bunch of stuff. And then if you come over here to the overview, you can actually write about what the overview is. I'm not going to put ours in here until you guys sign your NDAs, but this is kind of an example of it. You can also use templates. Actually, real quick, I can come back here and show you if you open this up. There's a bunch of templates, just kind of quickly set it up. So you could do like this, and it just pre-populates it. You essentially go through and just change all these things out. Another cool thing, actually, I'll jump ahead a little bit while I'm talking about it. There's documentation for the collections. If we come in here, view documentation, this auto-generates. So it kind of shows you like, here's the call, here's this, here's the body, here's the responses, that sort of thing. With Postbot, you can actually go in and change all this stuff on the fly and just have it kind of like ingest your stuff and auto-generate it for you, which is pretty cool. Our clients, I don't know about y'all's clients, don't read documentation, they ask us instead. So we haven't really utilized that yet. We have a separate documentation thing, but if I can ever figure out a way to get them to actually read documentation, that would be brilliant. So I've created my workspace. I need to populate it with a collection. Previously, doing this sort of stuff, we have X number of clients. We'll say it's 40. The way the workflow works for our collection is a new release comes out, the QA team validates it, they do all their changes, they provide us with a new collection. Ours doesn't match theirs, so we have to go in and do a bunch of changelog stuff. Not a big deal, but in order to get those updates to clients, previously you would have to go in there and manually change the collection fields. So if a collection came out for the customer onboarding endpoint, we would have to come in here, change it, validate it, save this, and then essentially, copy this call and then go paste it into 40 different partner workspaces. What we can do now is we started using this version control tool that Postman has, where we fork the collection into the partner workspace itself. And I will show you how that works. So select the collection, 3 buttons here, create a fork, choose the workspace. So we're going to go 20-sided tavern, of course. You can choose whether to fork an environment. I'm not going to fork an environment because we're not going to run any calls. And then you can set up notifications so you can watch the original collection. This is good if I'm not doing the collection updates and Mike is. I can know when a collection gets updated and go in there and pull the changes into the different workspaces. So we're going to fork it. Cross your fingers. Nice. So it takes us to the 20-sided tavern, brings us into the partner workspace. We have a forked collection here ready to go. Let's see. So this is all set up. You can see that it's forked. You can see where it's forked from, all that good stuff. Our clients use partner workspaces to develop their application, but also to do a bunch of testing. So we have a few clients that don't test through the application itself. They test through Postman. They test a lot of changes through Postman, which means they're kind of manipulating their own collection, setting their own variables, creating variables, changing stuff, all that sort of thing. So our main concern is if we make a change on our side, is it going to overwrite their changes? So we're going to take another risk here. We're going to come into customer onboarding. I want to track, we have a create new customer, Ryan. I want to track a different customer. So we're going to duplicate this. We're going to have create new customer, Ryan's twin brother. Same exact call, but it allows them to create new variables on top of it. So when I pre-request scripts in here, you can see there's a lot of stuff for like setting random cities, setting random states, setting random zip codes. A lot of that stuff doesn't matter. What they want to do is get the new customer tag and store that and have it be stored, not overwrite the existing variable, create a new variable to write it into. So they'll come up here, pop into variables, and we could say, twin brother, new customer tag. Cool. And we'll save it. Make sure this one's saved too. All right. So I'm emulating our customers, our clients, manipulating their own collections, doing their own thing. We're going to switch back, change perspective to my perspectives. I have a new collection. I have updates to make to a collection. We'll say that we have a new call that came in for customer onboarding. We're going to do, let's actually keep it separate. We'll say we're just going to make a copy of this balance here. So we'll just call it that, get new balance functionality. I'm making changes. This is tantamount to, we release an update, we have new changes, we have changes to the existing endpoints, whatever it is. I'm not going to edit those calls directly. I'm going to create a copy of those calls so it's not, deleted essentially out of their collection and send an alert out for them. So I've changed this collection. I have an email alert in my inbox saying that this collection has been changed because I'm watching this collection. Now I can come into our partner workspace, and instead of manually coming in here and implementing those things, I can simply come up here. I can do pull changes. And I can see that I have a new call. I can see exactly where it's at. I can see what it is. I can see the changes. It's essentially a mini diff of what I changed for the collection on my Avenu admin side. So I'm going to pull changes. Everybody cross your fingers. Hold your breath. Nice. So I've pulled the changes. Now it's critical that those changes showed up and it didn't overwrite the changes that the client made on their own stuff. So if we did this correctly, and it works the way that it's worked every single time so far, I still have my new variable. I still have my new create a customer for Ryan's twin brother. And I have a new get new balance functionality script added to the collection itself. So this was a game changer for us, mostly for Mike, because I'll be honest, he was mostly responsible for doing this sort of thing. And it's huge, absolutely huge. Now the client can come in here and look at, size documentation. Where is the change log? View the change log, you can see these changes were made. These were added, whoops. You can come in here, view the diff. So our client can see, this is what changed in the collection. This was enabled, this was added. It'll also show up here with the values of the variables and stuff if you need to add a value to those variables, whatever that looks like for your organization. Trying to think of what else. Obviously, you can also do this with environment files. So if you're rotating keys, which we often do. So let's say you have an RSA key or something generated for the client for them to authenticate with the servers, with the sandbox or dev environment, whatever it is that you're using, whatever you call it. you can change that on behalf of the client in their environment, push those collections, and the Postman will automatically work. They can just go in and grab it, put it into their application if they're testing with their application, whatever it is. So it actually makes the security side of things, like rotating client authentication keys, super, super simple, like really straightforward. Talk about, user provisioning in the workspaces. Of course, you can change it so that clients can't make any edits to their collection. You can change it so that they can. Obviously, we let them for obvious reasons. We want them to be able to test it and make changes and track new customers and whatever it is that they're going to do. And then, obviously, we can control that. So if client doesn't need to use the Postman workspaces anymore, we can revoke access a number of ways on the platform, but we can also very easily deprecate users out of Postman that way as well. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I wish I could show y'all more of the postbot stuff, because that thing is rad as hell. I know Gen AI is like investor catnip right now, but it is actually a huge benefit. Like, it's actually super, super helpful. So I think, Patricia, I'm more or less done. I think I wrapped up earlier than I expected to. Let me check the chat here. Do you have any questions? Any demos? Anybody want me to run back over something real quick?
Okay, here, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. Yeah, so thank you so much. I really love that this was demo heavy. And I think let's just take a moment to make sure if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. And thanks for all the fun GIFs, everyone. I know it was captivating.
I could torture a bunch of D&D stuff into this if you want me to. But honestly, so I think what sets us apart, we have a little bit of a habit talking to our vendors, Postman not excluding, and we explain exactly what it is that we do and what we are going to use the platform for, and kind of the features that we need, and just like the workflow, like the user story, right, of how we need to facilitate things. And I mean, like, if I can brag on Postman for a second, like, they knock it out of the park. Pretty much everything that we've asked for has either already existed or they've taken as feedback and then released fairly on a pretty quick turnaround. Previously, if we had done this fork thing and then merged it in, it would have changed variables, overwritten stuff. It wouldn't have, persisted the changes that existed in the collection before I did the poll. So that's a huge one for us. And then, yeah, I mean, for the weirdness of our organization where we have to engage with multiple clients, but we cannot allow, I can't start like a README API documentation and provision user access keys for clients to just start messing around with it. That's just not an option for us. Just like, using PII in a sandbox environment is not an option for us. So we have to be pretty clever and creative with the ways that we administer testing solutions, user provisioning, all that sort of stuff. And this is what we've come up with.
It's amazing.
It works pretty well.
The one thing I do obsess on is the pain point of your customers needing to read the documentation, and the fact that, and I think it's pretty predictable, right? That it generally goes to you and Mike rather than the documentation. And I keep thinking about ways to remedy that, because, yeah.
If anybody else has ideas of how to get customers to read documentation, dude, I'm all ears. What I have found is like trying to make it as easy as possible. And there's a lot of people out there, like, if you call me, I'm ignoring your phone call. Straight up, elder millennial, not interested in talking on the phone. You shoot me a text, I'll respond immediately.
Yeah. That
sort of engagement with the world is something that we have to consider in our department of how do we package the message to our customers, to our clients, in a way that they are going to receive it? So how do we package the documentation in a way that they know it's been updated, that they know that a new release is coming out, that it's not just another email that shows up in the inbox and they're like, okay, new changelog, I'll get to that later or something. If there's a alert from Postman, I'm more apt to read that, saying like, hey, your collection changed. I will take a look at that versus an email from some sort of automated server somewhere saying like, hey, there's a new changelog out there. So we try to, not to like belabor the word Avenu, but we do try to find a bunch of different avenues to get this information to our clients.
Interesting. The one thing I notice in my journey is when I look at, let's say there's someone whose documentation I use, but if I consistently go to the documentation and it's all outdated, then I stop looking at the documentation. So that is one thing you have, I think, going for you, is that you don't have that history of poor documentation, or so I think. So is my understanding. So there's a positive note there.
That's a welcome opinion. I'll take that one.
That's right.
Kayla, I see your question about like how do I link them to these types of things through Postman on your website. We have a partner portal that our clients can use. We can send a bunch of automated emails and stuff from there. So essentially we put a banner on that saying that a new release comes out, and then we instruct our clients to quote unquote watch the collection when they join in the partner workspace, so they get an update whenever an admin makes a change to it, essentially. So they'll have an email sent to them through Postman that something is updated, apart from us pinging them on Slack, sending an email, putting a banner out, sending a carrier pigeon, firing off a cannon, shooting off a firework, that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. I work in the support department. We are the front line for, hey, this thing is broken down. It's like, well, it's been out for 6 weeks in Sandbox and you had 6 weeks to make a change, man. Like, please let me know if this hasn't gone through yet. Which is its own headache all on its own of API versioning and so on and so forth. But yeah, we've been, I wish I could have shown more of what we had to do before, like going in and individually changing the collection variables, going in and individually changing the calls, adding a new call, that sort of stuff. Now with collection forking and version control, it's so much easier. I'm sure Mike would have killed to have Postbot when he was writing 900 some odd UAT post request scripts for each endpoint that comes out. Just say like, hey man, I need you to check every single variable and make it look like this. I've tested it on my own personal Postman thing. It's correct like 98% of the time, even having to go back and change a couple words or something saves just a tremendous amount of time. The code snippets go a long way with that sort of thing. Like, yeah, it's just huge.
Awesome. And Kayla, you're welcome to come on stage and introduce yourself and tell us about your use case or what you're up to if you'd like.
Yeah, if there's anybody else that has to do some of the things that me and Mike have to do, and y'all want to commiserate, like I can replace this with vodka or something right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyone else in the room have any questions or thoughts or want to share what you're working on and see if the brains in the room can support you at all? Otherwise, unless Dan wants to take us through more of the journey, I think we're good to go. And I would just say that from my side, it's been a pleasure, Dan. As you know, it's been a great journey getting to know you and working with you.
Yeah.
And I particularly love the fact that you really come into this focused on the demo and your story, and I'm excited to see where you go in the future because I know you're going to keep innovating. And a big thanks to the attendees as well. We will share this recording via email. We'll have it on YouTube and share it in the community as well. So
I could do one last thing if you want. I'll share one last time. I'm going to put Elizabeth on blast here. Sorry, Elizabeth. So you're going to be in the firing line. So one of the things I kind of mentioned at the start of it, recently we had a really good demo. Thank you both, Patricia and Elizabeth, and everybody else at Postman for setting these types of things up with flows. If you all haven't looked at flows yet, and you do something in this sort of line of work, I would implore you to do so. Reach out to your CSM, whoever else, to get a demo of flows, because our next stage, what we are going to do is create a visual representation of this entire collection. So instead of it being a collection with variables and calls and very technical sort of stuff, which is great for developers, necessary for developers, with flows, you can essentially create a full story. So I'll be able to do a full user story of the customer onboarding process. And it's essentially, you just hit a button and it shows everything for you. You can build all of that out that runs automatically through a visual kind of space. And if you're like me, a very visual learner, or you are supporting clients that are at different stages of development, both as developers and as organizations, it can be really helpful for some of the junior developers or something to get a visual representation of what these calls are doing and the variables that matter and what's coming back from them. And Flows takes care of a lot of that. So strongly recommend reach out to whoever your CSS team is, or just Elizabeth in general, and she will be able to hook you up with some sort of a demo for that. It's rad as hell, again.
Thanks for saying that. And if anyone starts tinkering, the Postman Flows, the head of Postman Flows, and the Flows product lead and the Flows engineers hang out in the community and help out very, very real time. And yeah, so thanks for sharing that. I can't wait till you get started on it. And it looks like we have a question in here by Arunavadas. Maybe we could read it out loud.
Sure. So while testing in Postman, I want to do a different request body for the same endpoint. Can we get the data from Excel and see different responses? What I'm assuming you're saying is you have like a CSV with different fields, and you want to be able to one-to-one those CSV fields to a request body, right? So like if you have a CSV, okay. I don't know. That would be a question for the Postman product team. Boy, that would be great if you could. I would love to do something like that. Right now, I just create a new call, or clients create a new call and manually input the info into the actual request body itself.
And just a little exciting moment is Husam also answered in the chat. And Husam, I'll have to introduce you, Dan and Husam, on LinkedIn or something. Husam is with Moneras, a Canadian company, and they just launched their Workspace. We should share that in the chat, Husam, and they're using Flows, and he's actually going to present in February as the plan around stuff. Yeah, so.
I will be there.
Cool.
I will definitely be there, for sure. Yeah, Arunava, I hope I'm saying that right. Typically what I do for that sort of scenario is I just create a different request body, fill that stuff in. And if I need to track that person, so like we do that here at Avenu, we have the whole customer process, right? Like it's a living, breathing consumer with a bank account. So being able to do an ACH fund and debit card fund and track all that information, we create new variables within the collection itself to track it. So I'll be able to basically say, and I may be over-explaining it entirely, and you might be screaming at me through the screen. So I hope it's not, something that you already know. But if I come in here and I look at my new create a customer, if I wanted to change this, I could change this from Ryan DOB to like Ryan's twin DOB, and then go into the collection variables and add that collection variable and track it all the way through. So that's more or less how we do it. And then whatever my pre-request script where I'm setting variables I need to track, say it's a transaction ID, a dispute ID, a customer ID, a status, whatever it is. You just use collection variables to track all that stuff. That said, if there is a way to do CSV into request bodies, plus one me for that feature request, that would be awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that was great. Thanks for walking through that. Anyone else have any questions, comments, all the things? You're welcome, Hussein. Super excited. And Hussein is also, now you're really on the hook. He's also creating some content for the community. So keep your eyes open. He's going to tell a story about webhooks and flows and such. Yeah. So I think this was awesome. So great chatting and learning from you, Dan. Anyone else want to share or have any questions? Otherwise, we'll let Dan carry on with his day and just give him a big round of applause and thank you for your time. And thank you to Mike, who's also in the room, and Elizabeth Pickle for helping out and answering questions and being supportive.
Good deal.
Any closing words, Dan?
I don't know. So I'm a career switcher. I went from culinary to technology about 7 or 8 years ago. Oddly enough, Mike did the same thing. I don't know when his transition was, but he also made the jump from the culinary side of things to technology careers. So I think part of the problem is I didn't know exactly what was available to me as resources when starting to work with vendors. When you have a really good like CSM, like somebody like an Elizabeth, community managers like yourself, that sort of stuff, what I've learned is you can just reach out to somebody, whoever your contact is at whatever vendor you're using, and get a ton of information and help. Like there's a lot that you can just like have out there. Like I wasn't aware of that entire concept when I first started. I was like, oh, I just have to go figure this out myself. That's just not true. So if you are a Postman user, you have an account, enterprise, whatever, even outside of Postman, so you Salesforce or something else, reach out to your community managers, reach out to your, my customer support managers, whoever else. If you're anything like me, you will be pleasantly surprised with the response that you get.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, with that, I would say we all carry on, have great days, great nights. Hope you all keep your eyes open for the upcoming sessions. We are going to take holiday on these, so we'll come back in January. We'll have Net Documents speaking. We'll also have Monera speaking and more. So stay tuned and check out Avenu. And if Dan's cool with it, find him on LinkedIn and connect and have a great day and week in life, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate the time, everybody. Take care.
Sweet. Ciao for now.